I pretty much got a license to get rid of him, man. And the problem is that most of you motherfuckers are a bunch of bitches today.
So Ben Azoulay is back again, giving life advice to young men, and right away we have a problem. Because this is a 30-year-old man trying to teach men how to become kings, while the story around him is that he lives with his mother, has no real job, gets an allowance from mommy, borrows his brother's car, and then tries to present it as if it belongs to him. So before we even get into the speech, let's be honest. This isn't a king giving wisdom from the throne. This is a guy borrowing the throne for the weekend and hoping nobody checks the registration. He starts by saying, "We live in an easy world, and because of that, men have become weak and soft."
I'm sitting and thinking to myself, we live in such an easy world today. So easy that you as a man became weak. You became soft. And that is why so many men are in pain today. They are suffering because they're afraid of going through the suffering. A man who fears suffering is already suffering from what he fears.
Which is funny because nothing says hard times create strong men like living under your mom's roof while filming motivational speeches about suffering. He talks about pain, pressure, waking up at 3 a.m., ice baths, 3 workouts a day, steak and eggs, calorie deficits, and starving himself. Brother, relax. You are not storming Normandy. You are doing influencer cardio before asking mom if the Wi-Fi password changed. This is the problem with these fake alpha male speeches. They dress everything up like it's war. Going to the gym is war. Eating eggs is war. Being uncomfortable is war. Waking up early is war. But somehow getting a steady job, building an actual life, keeping a relationship together, taking accountability, and telling the truth? Now, suddenly, that battlefield gets real quiet. Then Ben says men are like diamonds and they thrive under pressure.
You have to understand that every man in history that you've ever heard of went through the pain. He went through the pressure. You think everything that I have just came and fell to me right out of the sky? Putting on myself so much pressure. But what does pressure do? Men, we're like diamonds. We thrive under pressure. We die under comfort. Every single man in history that you've heard of, every king, every emperor, every leader, they went through the pressure. They loved the chaos. They loved the pain. They loved everything that they went through.
But pressure is not magic. Pressure does not automatically turn you into a diamond. Sometimes pressure just exposes what you actually are. And in Ben's case, the pressure seems to expose a guy who wants the image of success without the receipts. He wants to talk like a leader, dress like a millionaire, pose next to cars, talk about private jets and yachts, and call himself king. But the story people are breaking down is completely different. A king with no kingdom. A millionaire with no visible job, a boss who still needs an allowance, a man of discipline who allegedly can't even keep his own life in order. That's not masculinity, that's cosplay with better lighting. Then he starts talking about Alexander the Great, King David, King Solomon, kings, emperors, ancestors, bloodlines, pressure, war, and legacy. This is where the whole thing turns into a middle school history report written by a guy who only read the motivational quote section.
They could have just had a normal life. But Alexander the Great didn't want to have a normal life. He told everybody that he was a demigod, that he was coming for everyone. Alexander the Great started at the age of 16 when he went to his first battle, his first war. You today as a man, you're 30 years old and you don't know what the fuck you're gonna do tomorrow morning. Ask yourself this. Are you truly happy? Are you truly happy? And are you at peace? Because as a man, you don't want to be at peace. You want to be at constant war. When I look at my ancestors, like King Solomon, King David went to fight Goliath. He didn't back down. He went, he fought him, and he beat him to become a king. You think King Solomon didn't have pressure on him? He could have settled for 10 wives, but he wanted 1,000. And you think he didn't find out that his 997th wife was cheating on him with another general at another kingdom? And he had to get on his fucking horse and ride all the way over there with his boys and go annihilate whatever general that was and take back his wife to his kingdom, and he had a bunch of children running around where he didn't even remember their names, and he would wake up and had a stomach ache, and the whole world was trying to tear down his kingdom and take away his wealth, and God was staring down at him like, what the fuck are you doing? You think he didn't have all that?
He wants young men to believe they need to live in constant war to become great. No, they don't. Young men need discipline. They need direction. They need accountability. They need purpose. They need to stop taking life advice from grown men who use ancient kings as branding while their own house isn't even in order. Because that's the real issue here. Ben is not just saying, work hard. Nobody has a problem with working hard. The problem is he's selling young men this fantasy that if they suffer enough, talk tough enough, wake up early enough, and call themselves kings, they'll become something. But what is he actually showing them? A fake lifestyle? A fake image? A borrowed car? A borrowed identity? A man who wants respect without earning trust? And then we get to the part that makes this whole "I'm here to guide young men" routine even worse. This is a man with a documented past involving a 15-year-old girl and a serious charge that, according to what's been discussed publicly, he pleaded guilty to. So when someone like that starts preaching morality, manhood, discipline, and leadership to young men, that's not inspiring. That's disturbing. You don't get to put on sunglasses, call yourself king, talk about fear, pressure, and legacy, and then expect everybody to ignore the part of your story that destroys the image you're trying to sell. That's not being hated on. That's called context. And context is kryptonite to fake influencers. Then he says if you don't know your ancestors' names, you come from a bloodline of losers. That might be one of the dumbest things he said.
If you don't know one single name from your ancestors, then by definition, you come from a bloodline of losers.
Most people don't know their ancestors' names because life happened. Records got lost. Families moved. People were poor. People survived wars. People survived immigration. People survived real hardship. Not knowing your great-great-grandfather's name doesn't mean you come from losers. But pretending to be a king while living like a dependent adult? That's definitely not helping the bloodline argument. He keeps saying men need to love pressure. But here's a better version. Men need to love responsibility, because pressure without responsibility is just noise. And that's what this whole speech feels like. Noise. Dramatic music, fake intensity, ancient names, war talk, luxury talk, fear talk. But underneath all of it, there's no real foundation. A real man doesn't have to tell you he's a king every 5 minutes. A real leader doesn't need to pretend his brother's car is his. A real mentor doesn't build his platform on lies, flexes, and half-baked history lessons. And a real example for young men should be someone who has actually built something solid, not someone who looks like he's auditioning for Alpha Male, Basement Edition. So when Ben says, "Never fear fear, become fear." No, Ben. Become employed. Become honest. Become accountable. Become someone who can advise without people immediately asking, "Wait, don't you live with your mom?" Because young men do not need another fake king. They need real examples. And Ben Azoulay is not the warning sign because he's too strong. He's the warning sign because he's what happens when confidence gets divorced from reality and starts paying rent in his mother's house.